You have typed a question into a box today. Maybe you asked for a recipe. Maybe you asked for help writing an email. Within seconds, words appeared, one after another, almost like something on the other side was thinking. But nothing was thinking, not the way you think. The real answer is far stranger and far more mechanical than it feels. Here's what you're actually talking to, not a mind, not a brain in a box. A pattern completion machine trained on an almost unimaginable pile of human writing, doing something closer to advanced autocomplete than anything resembling thought. Let's start with the part nobody explains well. What is a model, really? Picture a machine that has read a significant fraction of the internet. Books, articles, forums, code, Wikipedia, billions of sentences. It didn't read them the way you do, understanding meaning as it goes. It read them the way a statistician reads a spreadsheet looking for patterns, which words tend to follow which other words, which ideas tend to cluster together, given the first half of a sentence, what usually comes next. That's the entire foundation. Predict the next word, then the next, then the next, over and over at a scale so large it starts to look like understanding. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. In 2017, a team of researchers at Google published a paper called "Attention is All You Need." One of its authors, Ashish Vaswani, and his colleagues introduced something called the transformer architecture. That single idea is the reason ChatGPT exists at all. What does attention mean here? Not attention like paying attention in class, mathematical attention, a way for the model to look at every word in a sentence at once and decide which other words matter most for understanding each one. If you write, "The trophy didn't fit in the suitcase because it was too big," the model has to figure out what it refers to. The trophy, the suitcase. Attention is the mechanism that lets it weigh every possibility and settle on the most likely answer. Before this, machines processed language one word at a time, in order, like reading through a keyhole. Attention let the machine take in the whole sentence and eventually whole documents all at once. That shift is what made models like ChatGPT possible. But here's the twist most explanations skip entirely. The model you're talking to didn't simply learn to predict text. It was reshaped afterward, through a process that looks almost nothing like reading. It's called reinforcement learning from human feedback, and OpenAI's team, including researchers like Ilya Sutskever, used it to steer the raw prediction engine toward being useful, polite, and safe. Here's what that actually looks like. After the model was trained to predict text, human reviewers were shown multiple possible responses to the same question. They ranked them. Which answer was more helpful? Which was more honest? Which avoided being harmful? Those rankings were fed back into the system, again and again, until the model learned not just what words tend to follow other words, but which of its own outputs humans actually preferred. That's the part that makes it feel like a personality. It isn't one. It's a mirror, shaped by millions of tiny human judgments, reflecting back what people rewarded. Ask yourself something. If the model has no memory, no body, no continuous experience between your messages, what exactly is happening when it says, "I understand how you feel"? The honest answer, nothing is feeling anything. The words, "I understand," are simply the most statistically likely response to what you wrote, given everything the model has seen humans say in similar situations. It's not lying to you, exactly. It's completing a pattern that resembles empathy, because empathy-shaped language appeared constantly in its training data. This is the part that trips people up the most. The model doesn't know facts the way you know facts. It doesn't have a database it looks things up in. It generates each word based on probability, shaped by patterns, not verified truth. That's why it can sometimes produce confident, detailed, completely incorrect information. Researchers call this hallucination, and it isn't a bug hiding in the corner. It's a direct consequence of how the entire system works. The model isn't retrieving knowledge. It's generating the most plausible-sounding continuation of your question. There's an older idea buried underneath all of this, one that goes back further than you'd expect. In 1950, Alan Turing proposed a test. If a machine's responses in conversation become indistinguishable from a human's, does it matter what's happening underneath? Turing wasn't asking whether machines could think. He was asking whether the question even made sense. 70 years later, that question isn't philosophical anymore. It's sitting in your pocket. So which is it? Is this thing intelligent, or is it an extremely sophisticated illusion built out of statistics? The honest answer is more interesting than either extreme, and it's the reframe worth sitting with. The model isn't intelligent the way you are. It has no goals of its own, no awareness between conversations, no inner life waiting quietly when you close the tab. But it's also not just autocomplete in the dismissive sense people use that phrase. Predicting the next word, when done at a scale of hundreds of billions of parameters, trained on nearly the entire written output of human civilization, produces something that can translate languages, write code, explain physics, and hold a conversation that feels startlingly real. Neither category, mindless trick or genuine mind, quite captures it. It's a new kind of thing, a statistical mirror of collective human language, large enough that the reflection sometimes looks like a face staring back. Now bring this back to you, because you've felt the pull of this more than once. Think about how easy it is to type, "I feel like nobody understands me," into a chat window and receive, instantly, a paragraph that sounds like it does. Think about how natural it feels to ask it for advice on a relationship, a career decision, a hard conversation you're avoiding. Nothing about the interface reminds you that you're talking to a probability engine. The words are too smooth. The tone is too calibrated. That calibration isn't an accident. It's the entire product of that human feedback loop, tuned specifically to feel helpful and agreeable. That's worth remembering the next time it feels like more than it is. Not because the tool isn't useful, it clearly is, but because understanding what's actually happening under the hood changes how you use it. You start treating its confident answers with a bit more skepticism. You start double-checking the facts it hands you with total certainty. You start noticing that its warmth is a reflection of patterns in human writing, not a signal that something on the other side actually cares. There's a quieter version of this happening every time you scroll social media, too. Algorithms train the same underlying way, on patterns of what keeps human attention, decide what you see next. You already live inside systems built to predict you, shaped invisibly by millions of small decisions you never see. ChatGPT just made that process visible and put it in a conversation instead of a feed. So the next time words appear on your screen, calm, confident, seemingly understanding exactly what you meant, remember what's actually happening underneath. Billions of patterns, refined by human judgment, reflecting language back at you with startling precision. You have typed a question into a box today, and something on the other side felt almost like it was thinking. It wasn't thinking. It was reflecting at a scale large enough that the difference stopped feeling obvious.